Hey friends, welcome to Universal Truth. I have got an interesting topic to tell you. More than a century after it sank, the story of the RMS Titanic. Which fascinates people around the world, and as with any large-scale tragedy, not everyone believes mainstream explanations for the incident. There may not be many Titanic conspiracy theories out there, but the ones that do exist are certainly persistent. One theory was the subject of a book published in 1998, nearly 2 decades ago, and it still circulates today. Let's look at 6 conspiracy theories about the sinking of the Titanic. They're always interesting to think about. Number 1. The ship wasn't the Titanic. According to one theory, it wasn't the Titanic that sank on the night of April 14th. Instead, it was her sister ship, the Olympic, which was swapped with the Titanic and sunk in a deliberate accident as part of an insurance scheme. The Olympic, you see, had been in 2 serious collisions within months of its launch. The damage was so severe that repairs would have been astronomically expensive. Some theorists have suggested that White Star Line switched out the 2 ships, so the unblemished Titanic was sailing under the Olympic's name. The real Olympic, on the other hand, was left at the bottom of the ocean. This theory was most recently laid out in Robin Gardner's book Titanic, The Ship That Never Sank. Number 2. The wreck was deliberate. Another theory posits that rather than a terrible accident, the Titanic's wreck was deliberate. According to its proponents, 3 passengers on the ship, John Jacob Astor IV, Benjamin Guggenheim, and Isidor Straus, were opposed to the creation of the Federal Reserve Bank. Their deaths in the wreck supposedly smoothed the way for the establishment of the Federal Reserve Bank the following year, in 1913. There are a few variations on this theory. In some versions, the men were opposed to income tax legislation as well. According to others, the Catholic Order of Jesuits or the plutocrat, J.P. Morgan, lured the men onto the ship and to their deaths. Number 3. It was attacked by German U-boat. Because the Titanic was supposed to be an engineering marvel, some have claimed that it was sunk by an outside force, not an iceberg, but a torpedo from a German submarine. Supporters of this theory pointed out that several survivors heard explosions after the ship began sinking, and some saw a searchlight in the distance prior to the arrival of the rescue ship. Number 4. The curse of the Pharaoh. Some people actually believes that it's a curse. Particularly mystical and dubiously racist theory for the wreck blames the tragedy on a curse. According to this theory, a historian sailing on the Titanic was carrying the remains of an Egyptian mummy, which were stored on the bridge to avoid damage. You can see where this is going. Supposedly, the remains were cursed, causing the Titanic to sink mere days into the voyage. Number 5. Journalist foresaw the tragedy. This isn't so much a conspiracy theory as a paranormal tale, but it's worth noting. In 1886, the influential British writer William T. Stead published a short story titled How the Atlantic Mail Steamer Went Down. Its plot is eerily reminiscent of the Titanic disaster. A mail steamer in the Atlantic collides with another vessel, and a shortage of lifeboats on board caused an enormous loss of life. Number 6. A ship refused to help. Finally, there's a theory that the Norwegian seal hunting ship Samson was in the vicinity of the Titanic while the ship was sinking. Some believe that these lights emanated from the Samson. One crew member claimed to have seen rockets coming from the direction of what turned out to be the scene of the disaster, but because the ship was hunting in territorial waters, that distress signals were ignored. It wasn't until later that the crew found out they had sailed away from the Titanic. So much for being the king of the world. That's all for today. If you have any doubt, don't forget to leave it in the comment section.